Imagine living in your own home, thinking you're safe. But what if someone was watching your every move, lurking just a few steps away? Someone who knows when you leave for work, when you're home alone, and even when you're asleep. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, for one woman, this nightmare became her reality. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into 3 disturbing true stories of stalkers that will give you chills. These are not just stories, they're real-life horrors that show how far obsession can go and how terrifyingly close the danger can be when it's someone you think you know. Our first story takes us to a quiet suburban neighborhood where one woman's peaceful life was shattered by a neighbor who seemed harmless at first, but soon became a terrifying, obsessive force in her life. It's a story of how something as simple as a neighborly hello can turn into a living nightmare. It all started on a warm summer afternoon. Sarah, a young woman in her late 20s, had just moved into her new home, a charming 2-bedroom cottage tucked away on a quiet street. You know, the kind of neighborhood where everyone says hello as you walk by, and the only thing louder than the sound of kids playing in the street is the occasional bark from a neighbor's dog. Sarah was settling in, unpacking boxes, getting comfortable with the idea of a fresh start. But there was something strange about her neighbor, Mr. Dawson. Mr. Dawson was in his late 40s, always outside working in his garden, waving at Sarah whenever she walked past. At first, Sarah thought he was just friendly, maybe a little too eager, but nothing out of the ordinary for a small-town neighborhood, right? But soon Sarah started noticing the little things. It began with the odd way Mr. Dawson would always appear just when she was out in her yard, trimming the hedges or bringing in groceries. At first she thought it was a coincidence, but as the weeks passed, the encounters grew more frequent. Every time she went outside, there he was, standing at the edge of his driveway, staring at her. Sometimes he'd wave, other times he'd simply smile, but something about it felt off. One evening, Sarah came home late from work. She was tired, just wanting to unwind after a long day. As she opened her front door, she was hit with this strange feeling, like someone was watching her. She glanced around, but the street was quiet. However, just as she stepped inside, she heard something, a faint knock at the door. It wasn't her door, but it was coming from the other side of the yard. Mr. Dawson's house. She didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was just a neighborly visit, right? But the next morning, Sarah found something that made her blood run cold. There on her doorstep was a small note, just a few words scribbled in messy handwriting. "I see you." Sarah's heart raced. It wasn't a prank. It was something much darker. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences piled up. Mr. Dawson would appear out of nowhere, always at the most unexpected moments. He'd stand in his yard for hours, watching her every move. Then, one evening, when Sarah was heading to bed, she heard a noise from outside her bedroom window. She went to look, and through the darkness she saw him, Mr. Dawson, standing right there, staring into her window, his face expressionless. She had become the obsession of a man who had crossed a line from friendly to frightening. This next story takes us into the world of social media, where the boundaries between personal life and public life blur in ways that can be, well, terrifying. We all know that social media connects us to the world in ways we never thought possible. But what happens when it goes too far? When someone takes their obsession with your online presence from a harmless like or follow to a full-blown nightmare. Meet Emily, a young woman in her mid-20s, a college student with a passion for photography and a modest following on Instagram. Emily posted her daily life, her travels, her photography projects, and a few behind-the-scenes shots of her life. Nothing too out of the ordinary, just an average girl sharing her moments with the world. But to one person, Emily wasn't just a casual account to follow. She was the center of an obsession. At first, it started with harmless comments. The typical "love your photos," or "so gorgeous." The kinds of compliments you expect when you put yourself out there online. But then there was Zane, a username she didn't recognize. Zane wasn't like the other followers. His comments were constant, always posted within seconds of her updates. At first, Emily thought it was just someone who was really supportive, maybe even a little overly enthusiastic. But as the days went on, Zane began to cross the line. He started DMing Emily, sending her private messages about her photos, her life, even things she hadn't shared online. He knew where she lived, where she went to school, and where she liked to eat. At first, the messages were just friendly inquiries, questions about her photography, compliments on her work. But then the tone began to change. Zane started getting more personal, asking questions about her relationships, about her friends, about the people she spent time with. His messages became more demanding, more invasive. Emily felt uncomfortable, but she didn't want to cause a scene. She ignored the messages, hoping he'd eventually stop, but instead the messages only became more frequent, more unnerving. Zane would comment on every photo Emily posted, but now he started including phrases like, "I know exactly where you are," or "I saw you earlier today at the cafe. You looked beautiful." He knew things about her that no one could have known just by following her online. Then the real shock came. One evening, Emily was walking home from her part-time job, her mind on the day's tasks, when she got a notification on her phone. It was a direct message from Zane. It read, "I'm behind you right now." Emily froze, her heart stopped. She spun around, half expecting to see someone, but the street was empty. There was no sign of anyone. The message sent her heart racing. How did he know where she was? Had he been following her in real life?